How's it going, everyone? This is K Collections, and a new awesome welfare servant will be available. The adorable Berserker, Chacha, who's also the niece of Nobu, will be featured during our Gudaguda 2 event. I'll break down her stats, skills, CE recommendations, and some team builds, along with my final thoughts on this servant. She has the lowest attack stats out of the 4-star Berserkers, but the second highest HP, just lower than Tamamo Cat. She has a triple buster type deck with a buster NP. Thankfully her NP gains are good even with this type of deck. Always use her arts first to give her a bonus on her high hits, and arts quick buster or an arts buster will generate about 30 to 35% NP charge. Her active skills can be seen as passive-like effects. First one being able to charge up to 10% NP at the end of every turn for 3 turns. Keep in mind it's after your attacks, so if she has 90%, upon activation you can't use her NP until the next turn. The skill also has an Avenger-like skill, only without the downside. If an enemy with high hits attack her, she can gain a tremendous amount of NP. Her second skill again has a passive-like effect, only this time you'll gain 10 stars each turn. Wonderful ability, it's like a 20-30. Now, the downside is that your other 2 servants will have their star gather rates reduced by half. You may think that's good for Chacha, which does help her crit potential a bit, but it can also hurt your team's crit damage percentage. For example, if you have a servant with 100 gather rates, post-skill activation they will have 50. That's still more than Chacha, so she's not going to absorb majority of the stars to the point where she can crit with reliability. It'll give her maybe an extra 10 to 20% increase for an attack. This hurts your team because, let's say Artoria has 80% to deal crit damage with 1 attack. This skill will reduce that chance to, let's say, 60% if Chacha has command cards mixed in. I'm just throwing some random numbers, but basically, the closer star gathering a servant has with one another, the higher chance the stars will spread out evenly amongst their attacks. So, a 20% decrease can be the difference between Artoria dealing crit damage or not. And this skill alone won't make Chacha a reliable crit servant because her gather rate is still so low in comparison. Of course, the same thing can be said for Chacha as well. Like I mentioned, a 20% can be the difference between dealing crit damage or not. So, Chacha will definitely have an increased percentage, but it's at the cost of your other servants. And it really depends on the command cards that are available for the turn, or the 3 turns while this effect is still activated. Final skill is godly in my opinion, and I suggest maxing this out first. If you do, an enemy will constantly have a defense debuff. How this works is that turn 1, the target will have a 10% decrease. Depending on the level, you would add the percentage each turn. So, level 10 means on turn 2, the target will have 20% decrease, then 30% all the way up to 50%. Then you would reactivate, starting at 10%, going up again. Her Noble Phantasm is meant for clearing waves. Simple as that. Being a welfare, you'll have her at NP 5, helping with damage output. For CE recommendations, I highly suggest 0 over, since it's a huge boost to her 4 buster attacks. Sunrise is more so for quicker NP attacks. Chacha isn't a bad star generator as well. Increasing her generation can help, but prioritize her NP damage first and foremost. So, great heroes will work perfectly. If you think you can generate a lot of stars consistently, then increase her crit damage with Holy Night Supper. Having a passive star creation CE works perfectly with her second skill. Now, I don't recommend a star absorption CE because it'll make little difference. For example, Heated Sands will only raise her gather rate to 50. Still won't make her a priority even with her reduction skill. Team builds. You can focus on buffing Chacha's damage with Liz and Shakespeare. The best thing about this team would be the defense debuffs you can inflict. Long-term survivability is an issue since there's no healing. Now, this isn't really a weakness, but Shakespeare being a dude means he won't receive an extra attack from Liz. So Liz can increase Chacha's attack twice. Not only that, she can also decrease an enemy's defense as well. You can use both defense down on 1 target, resulting in massive damage, or you can split them into 2 targets, then use their AoE NP attacks to clear the wave. When chaining their NPs, you'll deal a minimum of 1500 damage for 3 turns thanks to the combination of curse and burn effects. Obviously, Shakespeare can buff Buster performance. Since all 3 servants possess a Buster AoE, that'll make clearing a wave of high HP enemies easier. At the end of turn 3, Chacha can have 50% NP charge with skills alone. Best time to use Shakespeare's NP battery is when Chacha can Brave Chain, since the skill also increases star gen. Again, she's quite decent at generating stars. This is a more crit-focused team. With active skills alone, you can create a shit ton of stars. Being focused on arts and buster, your quick cards will suffer, which results in less stars from attacks. But again, their skills will cover star creation. This isn't an issue, but something to be aware of. Merlin's buster buff is connected to his crit buff. The buster boost is more so meant for Chacha, but the crit buff is meant for Lancelot. Thankfully, Lancelot has 2 busters to use, but this is more so a scenario where you have to sacrifice boosting a servant's performance in favor of another. Merlin's passive NP charge and star creation synergizes well with Chacha. A 15% passive NP charge for a few turns and a minimum of 15 stars coming in. The buster buff is an obvious advantage for her. The crit buff can help, but remember, even with star gather rate reduction, Chacha still won't have higher priority over the stars. Therefore, the crit buff would be better for Lancelot. So Lancelot won't be affected by Chacha's decrease in gather rates. Even with that reduction, Lancelot's star absorption skill will give him 3050 star weight. Majority of the stars will still go to him. Since both skills last for 3 turns on a 5-turn cooldown, there's synergy between the 2 servants. You can have a 50% instant MP charge for him. Now if you combine all star creation effects, if all skills are leveled out, you'll generate a minimum of 30 stars for 3 turns. I mentioned this before, but Merlin's buster buff is more suited for Chacha, but since Lancelot has 2 busters and the skill increases crit damage, Lancelot is still a good target. My final thoughts on Chacha. She's a servant that focuses on consistent benefits throughout multiple turns, making her effective in long-term battles. Her skill cooldown is quite low, with effects lasting 3 turns or more. She's great for farming, having an AoE NP attack that should be at level 5 unless you slack off, of course. With 3 normal buster attacks, she's not reliant on her NP for damage. Chacha also has a continuous defense debuff that increases in effectiveness, allowing her to deal even more damage. She can generate some stars for your team, and her NP gains are good, so you won't have to wait a long time to activate her noble Phantasm. Now, she does have some weaknesses. Like I said, Chacha focuses on consistent benefits throughout multiple turns, but being a Berserker with no survivability skills, she may not survive long. It's like her playstyle is meant for long battles, but she doesn't have the stamina for those type of quests. Her team star weight reduction, I see it more as a negative, since it affects your other 2 servants who has a better crit potential. Yes, it will give Chacha a few more stars to use, but it won't be significant enough to make her reliable. If it were like MHX Alter, where only 1 servant loses their star weight, that's a completely different story, since your 3rd servant will have priority. In this case, Chacha's skill tries to spread the stars evenly. Overall, Chacha's a decent servant. She's not the worst welfare servant, but definitely not the best. Chacha is great for farming since she'll be at NP5. For more challenging quests, she's not the most effective servant to use. Special thanks to all my patrons for supporting me. If you want to support my channel, check out my Patreon. So which heroes or heroines would you like to see become a servant in FGO? It can be an existing servant within the franchise or not. I'm waiting for a Saber Mulan. That seems like a great character. One can only hope. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more FGO content. Follow my Twitter, Instagram, and join my Discord server. All links are in the description. Have an awesome day. Till next time.